Okay, welcome back. This video might not make sense to you if you haven't seen the first video, so please check that video out first before watching this one. Okay, let's get right into the video, addressing the comments. Some did make me question certain things, yeah, but mostly it's well, you'll see. So let's just get into it. Going by newest first. So this guy, Mobeen Ismail, framegen, turn it off, no issues. Didn't use framegen, please watch the video. Deleting DX cache from app data, local NVIDIA. I don't know if you've read this comment or not, or have tried this to fix the whole of the engine issues. I don't know. Afterwards it says update the same after 3 to 4 restarts of my PC. I've tried this before, well before. I haven't included it in the video because it's a waste of time. Doesn't work. This person, Queen Bida, basically summarizes the whole video, which is fine. She's saying she's got certain errors, 1.8 per pixel. No, she probably means 1/8 per pixel, not 1.8. And I asked her for a source for the 1/8. It's potentially there, you know. I think at the lowest setting of lighting it's 1/116th. That's what we officially know. Unofficially we can theorize that it goes down to 1/8 this is for ray trace GI, and maybe 1/4 at the highest setting. Don't know, it's all conjecture. I'm sure you're one of the few people who have actually watched the whole video, and of course you summarized it. So thank you for your comment regardless. Let's move on. This person, Dreaming Beyond, generally a positive comment, talks about how lighting is an issue, and he's I think he's a developer or something, or he's developing a game, or he's getting into indie gaming, and he's realizing how hard it is to make an engine on your own and also do the lighting for it, and how it needs to be taken seriously. Genuine comment here, very good. Thank you, Dreaming Beyond, and of course these people as well. Thank you for all your comments. Actually, I should have said that before. Federico Colanzarotta 9187. So this is the crux of his argument. He's saying that my GPU is not good enough for ray reconstruction. He has a top of the line rig basically, and he's saying his one still struggles. And then he goes on to say, this is the part I don't get. Did you test in a scenario that's suited for relevant results? Not really. It's very ambiguous. I have no idea what he means here. But this stuff here, ray reconstruction, the claim that it doesn't work on a 4070 Super, yes, it does. Again, this is just not a really great thought out comment. I've played other games with ray reconstruction. I've showed, obviously, Cyberpunk, and it works. So ray reconstruction does work in games. I'll show you ray reconstruction on a different game. This person here, Denny, the next comment, said, I think it's your PC. I don't have the problem on my RTX 4080 Super and have R off. So I got a hold of a 4080 Super. So I test both of these claims here. And this is what I got. I also have a new CPU as well. I found it at a good price. Ryzen 7 9700X. And here's both of them with the new drivers and all that sort of stuff. So let's just jump into it. So here we are in Doom the Dark Ages. I'm just going to show you my settings. Okay, 1440. Okay, where is the other thing? So I'm going to turn this on because apparently this improves GPU performance, variable rate shading. Okay, yes, it's balanced. And there we go, path tracing on, ray reconstruction on, ray traced shadows all. Okay, let me quickly go back. Some people don't watch the video. Frame generation off. I don't use RIP frame generation. Sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't. Mostly no. Ray trace transparency. Okay, include transparent surface such as particle effects. Path traced water. Okay, so all the path tracing stuff is on, including ray reconstruction. Everything else is on ultra. Okay. Okay, let's apply that. And let's look for anomalies. Here's one. Oh, here we go. Looky here, ladies and germs. We have found speckles. Alright, it's not as bad as Crimson Deserts, but nonetheless, when we move, it's more egregious. What's going on there? Yeah, when you move, it's more egregious. Yeah, as you can see. So ray reconstruction is flawed, right? Wrong. Well, let's go back in, and now let's turn off variable rate shading. Apply. Oh look. It's all fixed. Ray reconstruction is still on. Where's path tracing? Yeah, it's still on. Okay, what's the frames anyway? 55, yeah. In this sort of heavy place, it's 55. Okay, and it's running. Oh, and it's running flawless. Ray reconstruction, that is, right? So there you go, quick fix, and it's a permanent one. I mean, let's go upstairs. Let's have a gander. Look at the volumetrics on that. Right, all fixed. So why does that happen? Well, from my research, variable rate shading, I think how it works is it takes darker areas or similar looking areas and it starts to group the pixels together and sample them together. So basically it fires the ray into a grid instead of a per pixel. So I think in this case it's a 1/1/4 when I turn on variable rate, what you saw before, and it's all speckly, i.e. the ray per pixel count was lower, so we got ray reconstruction bugging out. You turn variable rate shading off, yes, performance takes 1 or 2 FPS hit, but you get a stable ray reconstruction image and the ray per pixel is a 1:1. So, and you know, this is stable. It's a very stable engine, one of the best engines in gaming. These guys, Rockstar's Rage and the Decima engine also. So yeah, very good. So now let's jump into the 4070 Super footage, and I had to uninstall the drivers, reinstall the drivers, and just real quick, the settings are the same: balanced DLSS, variable rate shading is on, and everything else is on ultra high, ultra nightmare, whatever. So you'll see that noise a little bit more pronounced than the 4080 Super, but that's because the 4080 Super having more ray tracing cores, so it can compute the light information a bit quicker, but nonetheless it's very noisy. So let's switch that VRS switch and boom, amazing, no noise. Ray reconstruction is working absolutely fine. There is no more tethering, no more noise, no more speckles, and consistent and stable. And we can go to other areas and just to do a sanity check to see if there are any spots in the world where it may or may not still show that speckles. And no, I'm hard pressed. We go back to that initial area that we saw and look, it's all stable, it's all clean. So ray reconstruction does work on 4070 Supers or hardware that's not high end. So that's debunked. Now let's move forward to the Crimson Desert part with the 4080 Super. Let's go. So that comment from Denny the Scar talking about how he has a 4080 Super and he has R off and he doesn't have this problem. Well, this is the evidence that he does have this problem and he's lying. There's clear trailing of light. There's low light convergence. There's a trailing of the shadows. And this is the 4080 Super. So why? You know, I don't understand why people would have this level of I don't know what I think it's cognitive dissonance, because I'm showing them pure facts here and they have two conflicting beliefs and then they deem it fit to go onto people's comment sections and lie to people and say, no, it's the person's video, it's the person's rig, it's this, it's that. No, it's literally you are the problem. You know, when people actively lie or hype the product in conversations they do it to make themselves feel better because they're attempting to reduce their psychological discomfort. Verbatim cognitive dissonance. You know, by convincing others, they get validation externally that their choice was right and that this game is okay and my choice in what I bought was good, and what I'm seeing, no, that doesn't happen to me. That happens to someone else. You know, I don't want to use the word cope, but this is what that is. And it really is disappointing that people will go this far. I mean, you're not even getting paid to talk about the game like this. So why? So to put this to bed, I've tested it with RR on, and it's the same problem as when I did it with the 4070 Super. And the underlying issue, again, from my first video, is the low ray per pixel count. We've seen it in this game. We've seen it in Doom. If the ray per pixel count is too low, ray reconstruction will suffer. It is what it is. Even a 4080 Super can't fix this issue. Case in point. Okay, let's move on. Use the enhanced internal graphics mod. It cleans up the ray tracing a bit, but honestly it looks pretty damn good already. The problem with this enhanced internal graphics mod, as you'll see now on screen, is that it's always being iterated on, and if you have the latest version of Crimson Desert, you have to wait for the modder to release the mod for a specific patch version. So I think the latest one he's got is 1.06. I'm on 1.07 on Crimson Desert, so can't use it. And you have to keep up to date with the modder. If Steam updates your game for Crimson Desert, your mod won't work until you upgrade your mod for the patch version. So moving on from that. So Idle Death Gaming's comment is generally about his rig and whatnot. And he also says that it's possibly my monitor. No. But he does have an RX 9070 XT, which brings a good point. This game is AMD sponsored. So there could be something to do with the architecture of how the engine works with GPUs. And this game is egregious in GPU favorability. I've pointed to this in the previous video with Jay's 2 cents. I'm sure a lot of people didn't watch that video or go and didn't search up that video, so I'll play a bit of it now. And this is where Intel was shut out from development or helping development in terms of how the engine will be used on their GPU with this studio. So have a look at this.
And they went on to say, over the past several years, we've reached out to Perlibis many times to help test, validate, and optimize support for Intel graphics, providing early hardware, drivers, and engineering resources across multiple generations, including Alchemist, Battle Mage, Meteor Lake, and Lunar Lake.
Right, so check out the rest of that video. It's very eye-opening. Back to this. This brings up a point of GPU exclusivity and how AMD is more supported in this game than it is on than any other GPU. And of course, it's an AMD sponsored title as well. You know, even if regeneration works better in this game than it does with ray reconstruction, because the method of how those two neural machine learning algorithms work is vastly different. For instance, regeneration it works independently from the upscaler. It can work asynchronously. It doesn't need tensor cores, X, Y, and Z. Of course, it has its own downsides visually. It's not perfect. However, let's just say for a second that Idle Death Gaming, when he turns ray reconstruction on, doesn't see the spotty noise. However, one thing is for sure. If you have an AMD GPU and you turn off ray regeneration, you will get 90% of the problems that all console users have with lighting. The stuff I've highlighted in the previous video and of course in this video. Perlibis have been ambitious to the point where they've made important the size of the world over basics like lighting. And PC has an opportunity to fix that with ray reconstruction or ray regeneration, but it can't do that with such a low ray per pixel count, which was the point of my last video when it pertained to lighting. And someone out there might say this is how AMD sponsored titles are. No, Ratchet and Clank, the Horizon games, those are all AMD sponsored titles and AMD first, you could say. And they run absolutely amazing on all hardware and even on consoles, especially on consoles as well, but even on PC, they run absolutely amazing. And that's down to, and the point here is what? It's the developers, it's the studio, it's the engine. If the engine is bad, it will run poorly across the board, which this game does. If the engine is good and there's a good team behind it, there's a good history of that team behind it, there's a good studio behind it, it will scale and perform and be stable, full stop. But thank you for the comment. Let's move on. So we have a comment from Suchin8524. To summarize, says that other comments have mentioned that I don't get, that there are different hardware configs and architecture that get different results. I know that, and I have shown I know that, but I thought that was a given, but I guess I have to explain that. Comparing Nvidia sponsored title like Cyberpunk compared to an AMD sponsored game on the same is a bit silly. The thing is, these people again are defending the incompetency of Perlibis. AMD sponsored titles I've already shown in this just now, recently a minute ago, should have minimal problems across the board. This has problems across consoles and across GPUs, high end, low end. I understand different configurations and architecture make a difference and how certain games are optimized for consoles first and some for PC. This is for PC first, specifically for AMD, but even then they have struggled. And the core problem is the low rate per pixel count and the really stingy ways to optimize the engine at the cost of saying, oh, we're twice as big as Red Dead 2, look at our world. No. Well, he calls me silly for that. And then he says and then of course I've showed in the video I've got Doom as well running, which works really well on AMD GPUs. Then he goes on to say there are also many non-hardware differences as well between them with DLSS, FSR, XeSS native, ray tracing on off, ray reconstruction on off. If you watch the video, I show you that I have ran it on native, I run it ray reconstruction on and off. So you haven't watched the video, so I'm assuming. I'm not going to use an NVIDIA GPU with FSR upscaling. And I wouldn't want you to have an AMD GPU and use XeSS or DLSS. That's, if anyone's silly, that is silly. Then he goes on to say that there are huge differences with drivers as well. I'm not going to sit here and install 10 different drivers just to show you that there's a difference. No other channel does that, even though they have millions and millions of followers or subscribers. You can do that if you want. That's not going to be me. And there are tons of graphic settings that are currently bugged. That's Pearl Abyss. Take it up with them. Then he says it's my way of doing this video or showing the video is too simplified. I would say watch the whole video first because you clearly have not. Okay, moving on. So this person here, oh my god, this person here has a very low IQ. I implore you to read it, just look at the grammar. But the gist of his opinion is that, I'll give you 3 points. If you read this, you might just get dumber. Apparently for this person, it's not as game breaking or immersion breaking. I agree with it, it's not game breaking. I don't agree with it's immersion breaking. Okay? He's fine with the nighttime lighting, each to their own. He says something very strange here where he says AC Shadows is not a comparable game. Even if technically the comparison was okay. The core of the game is an Ubisoft thrash. He means trash, which makes it not a good game. So I think what he's trying to say is because it's Ubisoft and they're woke or there's an agenda to the game, it's automatically, even if it's technically superior, it's not a good game. It's more worse for him than it is for something in a game that has light convergence, which I talked about, or the trailing of light. And just before, in the beginning, he says, I'm focusing on my perception of your argument and not the absolute truth. You know, these people exist and this is real life. This is ridiculous. And then he says, when I said Nintendo got their lighting right in the video, he says, I show a moment where the shadows of the trees are flickering like crazy. Ha ha ha. They use a low poly system with basically no lighting to have it run on the standardized potato they produce well. Yes, and the core of my point was that they have stability across the whole game and consistency in their art style. One part of the game doesn't look better or worse dramatically like Crimson Desert does. But he doesn't get it, you know, and then he has the goal to call me dumb or a bit dumb. This game is a success. I don't know. Yeah, a lot of his comment here is going to confuse you because I don't understand how he got out of high school without having a proper grammar or improper grammar like this, because it's very hard to decipher what he's talking about. So read that if you want to have an aneurysm. Anyway, Samira Abe Gunasekara says, yeah, waterfalls and cools and smokes are horrible. I tried everything, thought it was only me. Yep, that's the phenomenon nowadays where people think it's just them, but it's not. It's happening across the board. You bought a game, I bought the game. We didn't buy a different game, we bought the same game. Thank you for the comment. Paradoxic 1888. Screw this game, I'll hold it for the Wayward Realms. If you don't know what the Wayward Realms is I think it's the Skyrim ex-developers are making pretty much a successor to actual Skyrim. Hopefully, it's going to be good. And it doesn't look half bad. Check it out on Steam. I think there's a trailer out on it already. Playing on a 3060 Ti and the game looks fine and it's absolutely playable. That's an outright lie. Updates have been massive. Quality of life has been, but not for graphically and performance. They've been the same. Controls are pretty decent by now. No, they're pretty jank, just like they were at release, just a little bit better. And as well, it's not a story-driven game. I've never commented deeply on the story. I actually just showed the Deontay Wilder meme to say I'm not going to talk about it, but you want to mention it. Definite down vote for me. Great. And this person, I went to retort him and said, well, you're saying that it looks fine. I'm showing you there's problems in the game that are clearly not fine. So what are you saying? And he says, yeah, I experienced no game-breaking glitches. So this sort of person moves the goalpost when you have an argument with him. Waste of time. I'm still waiting for the ability to rebind WASD. WSAD. Me too. Great comment. Great point. We have a game where we cannot rebind keys. Let that sink in. Let that make sense. Yosharian? Yosharian. Thank you for the comment. Quick slow -1. Thank you for the comment where he talks about how they were ambitious, Pearl Abyss, and the game is fun to explore, but the combat does get old real quick, where if you have a decent sort of upgrade to your sword, you can just spam R2 and boom, you're kind of one-shotting enemies, and it does get old quick. Thank you for the comment. Nolog says, the weather effects can make the game unplayable at times. I keep the sunshine necklace on me at all times. The bush could help with Pyloon's fog. Oh my god, the fog. I'm going blind. Yes. The fog is horrendous, and I've explained why in the video. Go check it out. Right, and this next comment is by Dana CB7VK. It's a long one. It's like a 1,000-word essay. I'm telling you now. If you want to know what sounding incredibly confident is while being completely incorrect, this is it. Let's get into it. Off the bat, he says his backstory is he's a programmer and a CompTIA++ certificate with various other networks and programming side skill sets, familiar with varying programming languages as well. By the way, this comment has the highest likes, 4 likes, so this is going to be relevant later for those people who liked it. So to most people, that would just be, oh, he's a programmer. Well, CompTIA++ cert doesn't exist. There's nothing called CompTIA++ cert. There is CompTIA+, and the way that works is the actual certification is called A+. So you have Network Plus, Security Plus, Linux Plus. Anyone who actually holds these certifications that's how they say it. Saying you have a CompTIA++ cert doesn't make sense. You need to get that right, but you haven't got that right. So that's off the bat, and that's a really big one. Right, because generally speaking, CompTIA+, which this person has not said that he has CompTIA++, which doesn't exist. C++ does exist, and that's a programming language that a lot of game engines and studios use. You might have heard of it. They call it C++. His thing, I think he's lying. But even if he did have a CompTIA A+ certificate, it's just a foundational credential used to launch a career in information technology. AKA, it's very basic. And this involves things like PC hardware, mobile device configuration, network fundamentals, cloud and virtualization concepts. Can focus on software troubleshooting, installing OSs, data management, basic cybersecurity protocols. It's very basic. So if you want to have a credential showdown, which I don't, right? I used to be a front-end dev, and I also did a little bit of full stack. I did some projects with full stack development. If you want to compare the two, one focuses on infrastructure, the CompTIA A+, which we can't confirm this person has because he's even got that wrong. But that teaches you how to repair physical laptops, configure Wi-Fi routers, fix Windows crash errors, and remove malware, right? I do that fun on the side. You can see my channel. I did front end and a bit of back end, and that focuses on JavaScript, Redux, Node, a bit of HTML, CSS, and some database design and handling. So if you want to compare front end or full stack with CompTIA A+, front end is stuff that I did is 100% software. Stuff that CompTIA A+ did is mostly hardware and IT. So off the bat, that's where we are. And I'm only saying this because this person felt that he needed to bring this up in his comment. For whatever reason, don't know. Okay, so that's the first thing. Right, the biggest thing then after is he conflates system hardware optimization with engine level architectural rendering choices. Okay, this person is saying that it's harder to balance out the more hardware gets involved, right, regarding game engines. And this is downright false, because he's arguing that different RAM types, motherboards, power supplies and drivers, it gets too complicated for developers to optimize components to work perfectly together, which causes these visual issues. But motherboard handles data routing and power delivery. It does not decide how many rays or what render resolution the light is, or volumetrics are, or shadows. It does none of that. Nor does it control the game's internal, anything in the engine really. The game engine talks directly to the GPU, CPU through universal software layers, the API, DirectX 12 or Vulkan. Different RAM types or RAM speeds affect your frame rates and data loading times, right? They directly feed to the CPU. They do not change the visual quality of shadows, light, or inject noise into dark environments. That simply does not happen, right? And the GPU is more independent than anything in your rig. And when it comes to ray tracing and volumetrics and denoising, the GPU's internal hardware, specifically its RT cores and tensor cores, i.e. the ray tracing and the AI cores, does 99% of the heavy lifting using its own dedicated VRAM. So it doesn't really, actual DDR4 or 5 RAM on the system, on the motherboard, is not as important for the graphics as it is important for the CPU loading. So the GPU operates identically whether it's plugged into an ASUS motherboard or an MSI motherboard, because this person was talking about motherboard differences and PSU differences, power supply. And while graphic drivers handle performance stability and optimization, Nvidia and AMD do not release custom drivers that change a game's hard-coded ray count based on what your motherboard does or internal resolution of your game engine code. These are hard-coded into the Crimson Desert game by Pearl Abyss. It's a universal software limitation, not a hardware compatibility glitch. So he goes on to say, one PC can be massively better on paper than any other PC out there, yet a PC that costs 3k less may end up running the game better than the highest end PC. Where's the logic for this? He's very console for consoles. He's making that claim that it will look better or run better than a $6,000 PC because developers specifically optimize for PS5 Pros or lower end PCs that cost 3K instead of 6K. But while consoles optimization is a real thing, it cannot break the laws of physics or hardware limits. PS5 Pro has roughly the ray tracing performance of an RTX 3060 Ti. No amount of optimization for a console with a game will allow a PS5 Pro to cast more rays per pixel or reconstruct a sharper image from a sub 1080p base than an RTX 4070 Super using superior DLSS ray reconstruction. It's impossible. Impossible. So he goes on to say, also, just because a certain PC build is capable of handling and processing well does not mean it will. Yes, it will. A 5090 will make this game look outstanding. It has more RT cores, more tensor cores, so it will calculate and rasterize and do RT calculations far more capably, far more efficiently, far more faster than anything that's lower end. It will smash a PS5 or PS5 Pro. Everyone knows that, and I don't think you do. So it goes on, for every game due to said programming variance. I already answered that. Next, let's go on. That is why games for PC have recommended specs. No, they have recommended specs because people have different hardware. Sure, your PC may meet and exceed those specs, but that does not mean it will handle and run, process, and in the end, that does not mean it will handle, run, or process, and in the end run smoother or look better than lesser computers for every game. For 90% of the games out there, that's exactly what would happen. That's exactly why people have upgraded their PCs or have higher end PCs or lower end or mid-range. That's why. Yes, the capability is there, and yes, on paper it is indeed better, and especially nowadays with everything turning with AI and ray tracing. Yeah, so yes, the capability is there, and yes, on paper it is indeed better, but not always, and not with every game or every program or every process. Why are you saying this? Why are you saying every game or every... I'm talking about one game here, and you're going on about a whole industry. Why? So my question to you now, Dana, is, so in this PC first game, Crimson Desert, what is the best PC hardware to use? Because in your eyes, a 5090 and maybe a 9800 X3D is not optimal, or it's not going to perform that well compared to something lower. So what is the best? That's my question to you here. But let's move on. Anyhow, just want to bring that up. No, you have a certain point here, as your video by tangent is an excellent example of such limitations in the PC space. No, it isn't. This isn't an excellent example. It's probably the worst example. A good example would be a game and work better on someone with a 30 series card than it does on a 40 or 50 series card, or a game that runs better on a PlayStation 5 base or Pro than it does on a 5090. You'll be very hard pressed to find something like that. The only game I can think of is maybe The Last of Us or Batman Arkham, one of the Arkham games. They had a terrible PC port, which was fixed later. Yeah, if you went on a video and said those specific things, yeah, but you're on the wrong video then, because those games weren't PC first, they were console first. You're conflating software and hardware, and you're mixing it up in your head. Like you stated, it's 25% faster than a PS5 Pro. Does not mean it will handle, process, run smoother and look better than every... This is the thing, I've not even said it will run better on every single game. It's an average. There was a sign, and I even said it, approximately. Yeah, there's a variance there. I don't think you were a programmer. I don't think you say who you are, because basic programmers know what those symbols mean. But some games will just be optimized better for certain system setups, and unless the dev team programs the game with your... No, this is it. This is it. You're not very smart. It's as simple as that. In your head, you're very smart, but to people who know what they're talking about, no. I've already explained this in the beginning of this comment retort, but I think it's time I go onto the console side and give you a real common sense approach. With consoles, if a game engine is structurally forced to use a low ray count and heavy denoising on a 4070 Super just to stay playable, right? A console that is 50%, 25%, 80% slower cannot beat this. Number one, it doesn't have the option to use ray reconstruction or ray regeneration. Why do you think that is? The reason they haven't allowed that is because it requires more ray tracing engine cores to power it, to utilize it. PS5 Pro does not have that option. That should give you the first big clue as to how this game is optimized for first, and that's PC, because of those two options. And those two options struggle because of the low ray count. So to hit a frame target, the console version has to drop the internal resolution lower, even lower than a 4070 Super in this case, making the light divergence, the blurriness, quantifiably worse, not better. Anyhow, perfect video to highlight that. No, it's actually the worst video to highlight it. If you went to a Last of Us video or a Batman video, that would be the perfect. This is actually the worst video because this is a PC first game, not a console first game. But your arrogance is on full display here. It's not so much of a game problem or even a yes it is. Yes it is. No, because you know, or you have a little bit of experience with hardware and variants, you think this is it. You're that arrogant. Good lord. I mean, look at games from, say, Windows 2K era. Some of those games cannot even run on modern PCs, even though said PCs are vastly superior and are running modern Windows. That's because the APIs are different. Number one, if you know what you're doing, you can get it running quite easily, actually. Just go on YouTube, you can see people playing Fallout 1 and 2 and Baldur's Gate 1, and they're playing it on their systems, right? Modern systems. But number two, it's irrelevant to Crimson Desert. Older games, they don't work on modern PCs because of operating system incompatibility and outdated APIs like older versions of DirectX. Crimson Desert is a brand new and built for modern APIs, DirectX or Vulkan. I think it's more DirectX for this game. So it's designed for modern PCs and console architecture. It's like saying, well, I can't run a PS5 game on a PS1 game. Well, duh, of course I can't. I can't play an N64 game on a Nintendo Switch. That's why emulation exists. So your argument there falls apart. But the thing is, you are confident in your erroneous ways, and you sway people. So you have a talent in that. That in the majority of cases, even though my PC can outrun the Pro, it does not mean that every game it touches will be optimized for it. But this game is actually optimized more and PC centric. And I already stated why. Same as, say, an F1 car cannot run the circuits a WRC car does, and vice versa. The thing is, they're driving on the same track. You and me, I mean, I don't know about you, I'm playing the same game. People on PS5 are playing the same game. So the track has to be the same. The cars have to be built quite similar because we're both running it. It's not like you turn this game on PC and it doesn't work. Or you turn it on console and it doesn't work and it only works on one architecture. So that analogy does not work. It is what it is. Again, this is a foundational knowledge gap that you do not have. Modern PCs use the same foundational architecture. AMD x86 CPUs, they use the same modern graphics APIs. A console isn't a different terrain. It's just a lower spec PC with a fixed set of hardware. That's to its core what a console is. Right? Or we could say a high-end PC is like a modern rally car with twin turbos and fully upgraded suspension and all the bells and whistles. Whereas a console is that car, but factory stock with a speed limiter. Because we're both driving on the same terrain. So your analogy does not work. You say you have zero problem running this game on PS5 Pro. That's a lie. I've proven why literally a minute or two ago. You say, I'm sure others exist where it looks and runs better on their PC than the Pro, and then there are some with superior PCs that do not run the game as well as lesser end PCs. Optimization is what you say. You don't know what optimization means and you have no idea what you're talking about, especially on PC first games like this. A video critiquing the product is not going to shift or change optimization. Yes, it has. That has worked for not only Cyberpunk, it's worked for No Man's Sky. It even worked for this game. There was so much backlash when Intel buyers bought this game and they reported it to Crimson Desert and they said go get a refund. That was their response, i.e. they were not having anything to do with Intel. They didn't want to know. What happened? They went back on their word. They got so much pushback that they had to accommodate for Intel. Staying quiet doesn't do anything. And imagine if you had an Intel GPU and you bought this game and it didn't work. You'd be more than angry. As for that to occur, you would need a handful of people running a PC having the same issues that match your spec. No, you don't understand how it works. You see, if there's an issue that needs addressing by a developer or a studio, all they have to do is get a PC, put those settings into this PC, the graphic settings or scenarios, reproduce it in the game world or wherever. Because at the end of the day, the issue, the bug, the glitch, whatever it is, the low asset, the lighting problem, it's all hard coded into the game's rendering pipeline. It's hard coded. Like I've explained in the beginning of this retort, hardware is not going to change that. The only thing hardware changes is, generally speaking, why people get better GPUs and systems. They get more FPS and they can bump up the textures so the game looks higher quality. So you genuinely don't know what you're talking about. And you've swayed 4 people to like what you've said, which is a whole lot of nothing and misinformation. And then there's Neza Hual Duma, whose input and criticism is always welcome. Thank you for the support. Which brings me on to the conclusion of this video, which is the most important thing, which is media literacy. A lot of you know what you're talking about and know what you're seeing. A lot of you do not as well. The first thing is first, building critical thinking skills. This way you will identify people like Dana in the comments and very easily figure them out. It's very easy now. You've got Google and you've got AI. You can do all of that stuff. But for yourself, you need to have basic knowledge as well. So you might say, well, I'm too old or I don't want to study anymore. You don't have to do it the traditional way, the institutionalized ways that they taught you in school and put you off reading and books. That was all done by purpose. It was to put you off education so they can play you like a fiddle. So my advice is this. Look, you can use crash courses on YouTube where obviously they're free. So you can watch courses or videos on media literacy and philosophy. Okay, start there. You've got the internet, you can play logic games. Spend 10 minutes a day on riddles, play chess or deductive puzzle apps or even puzzle games. They're exceptionally well because they make you stop and think and question what's in front of you. What you thought you figured out was not it. So you have to exercise your brain, different parts of your brain. And lastly, my advice is read long form articles. Swap short social media, videos, your doom scrolling, your TikToks for 10-minute essays that explain how things work. Could be anything. Could be how tires are made. Could be how a wardrobe is made. Could be how ray tracing works. Could be anything like that. Read about it. Visualize it, dissect it, just 10 minutes. You can just do one of those things a day and you will see a massive change and see and digest information more clearly and for what they are opposed to face value. Okay, and I think that wraps this whole Crimson Desert chapter up. I want to thank everyone who commented, debated, shared their perspective in the last video. So now that I've officially closed this chapter, I want to shift gears. The upcoming videos are going to focus heavily on gaming news, industry updates, previews of major upcoming games. So if you enjoyed this 2-part series, help me out with a subscribe and let me know in the comments what upcoming game you want me to cover first. And until next time, take care of yourself, educate yourself, and catch you in the next video.